welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. Very excited to have Rolan Reichel here with us, CEO of GetArrow.ai, Arrow AI, with us here today.
Hi, Jason. Nice to meet you and glad to be here.
Absolutely. And I've been excited about our discussion, Rolan, with everything around your background in ad tech, what you guys are currently doing, even just some of the obstacles that have occurred in the past few years around advertising. I know we share a lot of similar viewpoints. So looking forward to the discussion, but want to familiarize the audience more with you. Could you share a bit about your background?
Yeah, happy to. It's a really exciting time to be in advertising technology. We're seeing the growth of the small business community and this direct-to-consumer community and people engaging with advertising technology in a way that has never been before. So I came into advertising through the brand side. I worked for the Corona brands here in California. That's the beer business. I used to manage about $80 million a year in beer business. And that's how I learned about marketing, everything from field marketing to digital marketing to, really how to promote your brand. Made the jump to digital about 12 years ago and went through a series of startups in San Francisco, which was really exciting. Was part of a company that we sold to Oracle. That was exciting. And along the way, really got into the technology side of the business. And that's what's so exciting about ad tech is that it's great technology. I worked for a Chinese company called iClick that is on the NASDAQ. I managed the United States for them, all their business and technology partnerships. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, pulled the ripcord, my friend, and went 100% entrepreneurial.
And
there you go. And haven't looked back. So 6 years ago, I built a video advertising platform. We were wired into 1.5 million websites, and then we had advertisers on the other side, real-time bidding. We could deliver a video ad in 40 milliseconds, decision on users, like with a global infrastructure, data infrastructure. So we built that platform, the technology, we built a business on top of it, sold that to a company in Canada called Good Life Networks, joined the executive team. We took that company public on the Toronto Venture Stock Exchange, which was really exciting to get to learn the public markets a little bit.
Nice.
Was wrapped up that after a couple of years and then started Custom Social, which is we're launching out as Arrow AI, our SMB product for Facebook marketing.
Very nice. So started in traditional Corona, large ad budgets, branding, moved over to DR through digital, eventually into your own entrepreneurial ventures, video advertising, in some of the peak times of video, I may add, and had a successful exit. I've learned more about the VC community through that, I imagine, and then the upcoming launch around Custom Social through Arrow AI.
That's exactly right. And my career has really traced those changes in the industry from exactly as you said, that traditional branding world, all the way to big data, big platforms, the growth of programmatic, and now this third generation of advertising companies that we're building here. So yeah, it's a great summary. Thank you.
Excellent. And so you got involved in digital in the early days, referred to often as the wild, wild west. You started mentioning programmatic. You've seen a lot of these rules built from the ground up.
I have. When AIB was just first starting and trying to figure out, back early days, it was really simple things that were being figured out, like what's an ad unit and what kind of ad units are standard ad units and what should we be using and how do we price these units? And really seeing that change from, it used to be if you wanted to advertise on the New York Times, you had to like call up your agency in New York. Yeah. Send over a file, wire them the money and they would place your ad, all the way to, this explosion in technology and capabilities where, you could run ads in milliseconds and do very precise decisioning. So yeah, it was, really interesting to see this like growth in this technology.
Absolutely. When I first got involved with digital, it was through an ad network that was monetizing ad space in digital magazines. So App Store was already in place, and then each magazine would create their own newsstand within their app, and then we'd have dynamic ad placements throughout it. And speaking with print buyers about, cover two and above the fold and all of these, traditional metrics, and then being able to, talk about reach. And we would try to get further into audience targeting and segmentation, but it was beyond some of the KPIs, some of the key performance indicators that they were looking at. So yeah, I definitely remember those early days of ad units. And it sounds like you were working on some exciting ones and moving over to video, being involved in early cost per view type budgeting, and figuring out the ad units for pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll. What was that like? What was it like to be a pioneer in the early days of video ads and structuring out campaigns that were going to meet clients' needs?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think when really, in the 2009, 10, all the way up to about 2015 was really the period where video advertising came into its own.
Hmm.
YouTube was a major player in the space, but there's other ones like Spot Exchange and AppNexus and Adapt TV, which went on to be AOL One, which was eventually made its way through. I guess from Yahoo to AOL.
A lot of acquisitions.
Lot of acquisitions. That's right. I think Facebook bought a video advertising platform during that period as well, somewhere around 2015, and rolled that into their offering as well. So you saw, people understanding in those mid 2000 teens just how powerful video was going to be, and how important it is as a tool to communicate your message. And as the technologies got better, you're able to really deploy video at scale. So it was a very exciting time, and even just figuring out simple things like the player on the page and syndicating players and getting video ads into players. There was just a real explosion of business models at that time, which was interesting. In a lot of ways, it also mirrored, I think, the strength of the open web.
Hmm.
Right? So the open web was a different place even 8 years ago than it is now. And, I think video advertising really came into its own in the open web. And now, we're sort of shifting back to these walled gardens, and it's changed the ecosystem quite a bit.
Yeah, and you mentioned a high volume of sites there that you would be able to do targeting off of for video placements and on programmatic platforms, basically using an AI. And I'm sure this will lead into Arrow AI in a moment, but using an AI to be able to optimize towards the best sites, the best day and time of week, the best audience segmentations, and a high volume of different segmentations that you can target off of. Were you getting a lot of performance advertisers on video? Was it more of awareness and reach, and hitting those type of more traditional metrics around video, stemming from broadcast campaigns and looking to get additional eyeballs there? And I'm asking because I'm curious on how this eventually evolves into social and a lot of things you guys are doing at Custom Social and Arrow AI. So trying to get a feel for the years before. Were you guys doing a lot of performance campaigns on video?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, and a really interesting one. So we were, we were doing, I would say in the early days, video was more about branding though. It really was more about
Sure.
brand message. And, it became more direct response oriented over time. Also, I think when I think about those early days in advertising technology, a lot of the technology was built for big brands. And the way I think about this is that, the business of digital advertising didn't change as much as the technology changed. And what I mean by that is that in the early days, kind of pre automation, the digital ecosystem was set up for biggest brands, top, Fortune 1000, Fortune 5000s. And I think as we built all this really amazing technology, data-driven technology and AI-enabled technology and machine learning, it was still built for big brands. And so it met their needs. And a lot of that is about branding and less about DR.
Yeah.
As the technology has become more widespread, I think you're seeing some changes there. And direct response advertisers really getting into the digital ecosystem, 4 or 5 years ago. and figuring out that it can be a great way to acquire a new user or customer, and figuring those models out. But in the early days, it was really more about branding and big brands. And then, like I said, like everything in the industry, it's now flattening out to more and more of that mid and long tail advertisers. So it's a really exciting time to see these folks coming in and using these technologies.
Absolutely. You hear of millions of advertisers on Facebook, on Google, the largest ad tech platforms out there, and the type of revenue that's associated. Where that's right. I remember in the ad network days, big brands is who you went after. You
That's
got your
right.
subscription to Ad Database Express or whatever platform it was, leverage relationships as much as you could, but you saw which agencies were on which accounts, and it was always going after the larger dollars. Even bringing in an advertising campaign of a smaller budget, it carried far more risk than something spending hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in a month, because the funnel wasn't even optimized yet. I don't even know if we were using words like funnel yet. That's who ad networks went after back then. It's like you mentioned, they were built to service big brands, top 100 advertisers, Fortune 500 organizations. It wasn't until Google and then later Facebook that it even became available for early stage type groups.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's such an important point to think about. And just to pick up on one thread in that comment, specifically related to Facebook. So Facebook, 3 years ago, Facebook had 5 million advertiser accounts globally, right? Then over the course of 2019 and then into 2020, that base grew to about 7.5 million advertisers. They just released some numbers. They're at over 10 million advertising accounts right now.
Wow.
So it's incredible, the growth, right? And that's just Facebook, and Google's experiencing similar things. And we actually had a conversation with Pinterest where they're also growing their advertising revenue, not on the biggest companies, but really in that mid and long tail. And exactly what Pinterest said to us was, look, we love our big advertisers, but we want to grow to, thousands of advertisers spending a couple thousand a month. So that's where that growth is coming for them as well, which is interesting. But yeah, over 10 million advertising accounts, which seems like a lot. But then you take another number, which is that there's 180 million global business profiles. So even though we're growing really fast, like all these companies becoming advertisers, there's still this huge group of folks that are going to become advertisers over the next 5 and 10 years. So we're at this amazing inflection point of where it feels like we can't grow anymore. But the reality is we're just getting started in this growth pattern of new advertisers into the ecosystem.
Absolutely. And I actually was not up to speed on those numbers. I remember 5, even 7.5, but over 10 million advertisers. That's massive. I think of the auctions taking place and all the bidders going against us in each one of those audiences. But what it opens up for small business, what it opens up for groups that are raising capital. We do a lot of equity crowdfunding where that takes place online now, and being able to go after angel investors, retail investors, and bring them to these type of opportunities. This would have never been available years back. So, definitely envision a world where audiences want to see ads at a greater and greater level. Thinking there's 10 million different groups advertising out there, the ability for customization and finding the right advertiser for the right moment becomes more and more systematic over time. And, going into social advertising, that's what comes to mind for me these days in terms of digital. It is the marketing mix and, social, all of the different programmatic channels with video display, native, audio, affiliate. There's always something new that can be purchased on an affiliate, on a programmatic platform. But social is where we look to take things. First, market test, have variants of audiences in there, creative, be able to ramp up what's working best. What has been some of the light bulb moments for you in regards to social advertising in your career and the creation of custom social? Why has it been a place that you've chosen to focus?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's been a lot of aha moments. I mean, it's one of the things that I love about this industry is it evolves so quickly and changes the technologies, the business models, and all of that. But there's no doubt that Facebook and Instagram have become incredibly important to this ecosystem. I was on a chat this morning with an entrepreneur from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They started this company called Main Street Orders, where they're servicing their local restaurant community. And the comment that he made to me was, and it's perfect timing. He just said, "Roland, we would have never started our business without Facebook, right? We would have never been able to reach our first customers, get our message out there, and build this business community that we've built." So that's been a real aha moment, is that Facebook is not, and that whole social media ecosystem, it's got different values to different communities, right? So for like on a personal use level, we all know it because we're sharing our photos and it's all the social things that we do. And I think that's how a lot of people have know Facebook, at least, your friends and family kind of conversations. But what the aha moment that I had was that how integral it's come to our business community. And, even their APIs alone, like we're API integrated into Facebook, right? As certified Facebook developers, thousands of companies rely on these APIs every day to run their business, to to grow their business. And so how it's this evolution of this social media into our economy in our business community, that is happening and will continue, I think, in the future for a long time.
Yeah, and the predictive elements of it. I think towards search and having those placements for specific keywords, where social, I know as a user, even they're serving me ads for things that I don't know I'm looking for. Whether it's B2B and different types
Right.
of marketing studies and reports and tools, and I'm often finding out the best new vendors from their Facebook ads on Facebook, or whether it's on a personal side. I do a lot of snowboarding. I'm a big fan of subscription services. These are well represented and travel well represented in my ads on social, to the point where I'm welcoming them because of the call to action, because of the incentive, where I would not type those things on search. I'm really going in there, getting out for what I need at the moment. I know that's been a huge element for some of the larger campaigns for social, even those in the political sphere and media, and being able to bring these new topics, these new ideas to users. The AI behind social alone is powerful, and I think a large attributor to the click-through rate and conversion rates we're seeing on social.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So the general paradigm that we think about here with Aero AI, our products, our marketing product for SMBs, is we think about the difference between intent and interest. So to your point about keywords and search, that's an intent-based environment, right? I need to go to Boston on Friday. I need some new snowboard bindings. I need some channel bindings, whatever it is, right? You're going to Google, you're going to search for that because you have thought of that, what you wanted, and you have intent to go and do that. Social is all about interests. It's a much more passive interest-based environment where you, like you said, you're cruising through your feed and you're seeing things that relate to your interests and to the things you know and love, or books you read, or all of that. And that correlation of interest and this whole data set around our interests and then the things we love and engage with is what's driving that environment. And that's how the things you're seeing, I think, are getting to you. So that's probably the second. I mean, you asked about the aha moment, and then the questions you're asking now. That was the big second aha moment for us. Was like interests. This is the framework that social media is working on, and it's a very powerful framework.
Absolutely. And I think of the abilities that, experts can use on social, us here as an agency. we're starting with 4 to 10 audiences. We could upload data mined audiences and go after very specific individuals, all on top of the social platforms data, which is unique. I mean, they see everything you're doing in terms of interest, as you're mentioning there. We'll then set up variants for creative. And I like to think there's actually a quote I've worked off of that references using an agency or some type of tech stack towards your social advertising buying as the difference of having a normal average driver in a Ferrari or a professional driver in there, where they're really able to take that vehicle's capabilities to the next level. You know, I could drive around town and hit the red lights, but what they would be able to bring to life with that vehicle is just light years ahead of that. So I think of it in the same way as an agency. And I know your technology is designed to do that. It's designed to have a less stressful, more advanced type of activation on one of these platforms, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And it gets back to the competition and the competitive nature now. And with the number of ad accounts growing and um, one of the ways to think about this is this, like at each stage of the advertising ecosystem, we've been trying to solve a problem, right? So the first stage was like, oh, let's solve efficiency, because we had a really inefficient media environment. Again, getting back to, you had to call a guy in New York to make an ad, right?
I
And then
remember that.
and then we
I
became
remember those days.
incredibly efficient. And now this third wave, this third generation is about like success and access. And as more people and more companies get involved, it becomes more competitive, um, and where that professional driver you're talking about is now more important than ever. You really do need to go into your advertising program with the right tech, the right people, an agency, whatever path you choose to go down, if you're going to be successful, because it is an environment. It's an ecosystem where you need tools, I think you make a great point. It's like any other area of someone's business where you acquire expertise, like your finances, right? You're going to get an accountant to do your finances. You need tech or people to really successfully run your advertising. And the good news is these tools are becoming more democratized, so they're getting easier and easier to use, which is great, getting more and more people into the ecosystem. But I like your race car analogy.
I actually took it from Frank Frausto at Beyond Enterprises. We were on a panel back when live conferences were a thing. I think in Atlantic City, it dates back, but it was such a perfect analogy. And again, that's what I hear that's available on your tools, on your platform, other ones out there. Anything to see more success from social advertising. For me, it's not a matter of will social ads work, whether it's a B2B initiative, B2C, even the vertical, and more about how to get them to work. And, to the title of the show here, Test, Optimize, Scale, how are you guys able to build that? How are you guys able to market that? Are there any recommendations that you would have for founders who are listening in, maybe of an SMB, on how they could approach their advertising, how they could approach their overall growth with tests, be it of marketing or overall operational direction?
Yes, great questions. At the end of the day, your media plan is part of your overall business strategy. So one of the things that happens when I'm talking to a founder, and we built this company for entrepreneurs. We talk about entrepreneurship and everyday heroes, everyday entrepreneurs. I mean, this is the kind of language we use. And so it really does come back to what your goals are. And if your goals are just to get things working, you're going from 0 to 1, or you're going from 1 to 3, or you're going from 3 to 10. Those are all kind of different phases. And, identifying up front, like what your business goals are and how you want to scale and how quickly you want to scale is so important, because from there you can then choose tools that meet your needs. Again, whether it be, hey, I need to go from 0 to 1. And the reason I mention that is we have tools that work in both of those arenas. The Arrow extension that we're building and launching here in April, I'm really excited about. It's a zero friction, low cost tool, and it's really designed for that small business owner that's going from 0 to 1 and saying, hey, I need to get these ads working, and I need to get, at least for every dollar I spend, I got to get like $1.50 back, and I got to make sure that the clicks I am getting are relevant to my business, and I'm building a lead or selling something or a service or whatever it is. So that's the big one, I think, is figure out where you are in that stage of growth and pick tools that meet your needs for that stage.
Sure. And focus on milestone 1, not 100, and be able to map things out from there, but really dial that 0 to 1.
It's so important. And it's so important to identify your audience up front as well. I mean, we build audience tools, so this is part of my paradigm, and and the way we think about the world is interest in audience tools. But the reason I say that is, I'll give you an easy example. We're working with a company right now that has this amazing soap bar, right? It's wonderful product made with this amazing clay from the Arctic, basically like northern part of Canada. Amazing product. And they came to us and they said, well, we want to compete in the soap category. And I was like, well, that seems like a good idea at first, until you realize you're up against Procter and Gamble, all these major players.
The
So
big boys.
yeah, who are spending tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, out there across these platforms to secure users. So one of the key things we say and really preach, and I think our technology tools represent this perspective, which is go niche
Mm.
first. It's all about a beachhead, right? Like if you can find 10 loyal customers, then you can find 100. And if you can get 100, I always feel like I'm in the Rogue One movie when I talk about this, like just get on the beachhead, that scene where they're flying down to the beach and she's like, we'll take our first chance on the beach and then go from there. But it's really true. I think it's so important for entrepreneurs who are, like part of being an entrepreneur is being a visionary, right? So of course you're thinking, hey, I'm going to go compete with Procter and Gamble, and you may one day, but in the meantime, get those first 10, 20, 100 loyal customers, because that's where you can build your business.
Great recommendation, and love the Rogue One quote and reference in there. But be able to find that cohort. When I think of a custom audience, when I think of a target audience, I want to be able to break them down, even apply a fictional name to them. I want to understand what Steve does on the weekends, who his closest friends, family, network are, and therefore the influencers on his purchase behavior. And if I could get 10 Steves, and there's 2 million Steves out there, or 10,000 Steves out there, I can go after more of them. I can really optimize towards it, scale it, take it to the next levels again and again and again. I saw it in the ad network world too. We're talking ad networks before. I saw ad networks that had 10 close B2B clients that were spending large amounts, and they were able to hit their revenue goals and be a very purposeful business. So, whether you're talking B2C, B2B, being able to find those key audiences to go after, and then source more, is a great way to go about it, versus targeting 100 million people, but really you're only reaching 100,000 and then writing it off when it doesn't work, saying, hey, Facebook didn't work for me, too early in the game.
It's a great point. And we've talked to tons of businesses that have exactly gone through that experience, Jason, where they advertised on social media, it didn't work, and then now they're back saying, okay, what do I do next? And it's unfortunate, because the options in the ecosystem are fairly limited, right? The big platforms out there, which are great platforms and serve an important function, but they all have a $10,000 minimum. That's not going to work for a a bike shop that, wants to sell another 50 bikes a month. So I say to that user, if you've had a bad experience, give us a call. We can get you back into the ecosystem in an effective and efficient way through very specific audience targeting on our tools, because I do believe this ecosystem can work for SMBs.
Absolutely. I highly agree. I've seen companies scale well beyond the SMB uh, category category directly by using social ads. And as you were saying earlier about an example where your client was in business because of social ads. But I want to speak about optimizing a little bit further.
Sure.
What do you recommend for a founder to do if they're not seeing performance right out of the gate, or if they are and they're saying, great, these audiences are working, these aren't. How do you approach optimization? How do you get your ads to a better point, whether the results are there right out of the gate or not?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's really two paths, right? You've got creative and you've got audience. Audience being the data side of it, and then creative optimization. And I don't mean to discount creative optimization, because I actually think that creative is quite important. We've done some custom creative for our own company in terms of the branding and the website. So I do believe in it. But for for the entrepreneur or the business owner who's launching, um, and whether they're trying to get things to work or looking for scale, we really encourage audience testing.
Mm.
And using our tool, obviously we would love for you to use our tool, but if you want to use your human brain at first, we encourage that too. But I think there comes a point, the options for audience targeting are so vast and so intricate that just trying to think of the next audience and saying, oh, I think I should target this person, falls down at a certain stage. But the main point really is, do some audience testing. Take 20% of your budget. If you're going to spend $1,000 in a month, take $200 and test some audiences, and find 5 or 10 where you're getting good click-through rates, you're getting good the right CPC, you're getting the right add to cart metrics. And when you find those audiences, even based on those pre-conversion metrics, start applying budgets there. And that's the other big one that I think I see folks make a mistake, if you will, is that they wait for the full conversion metrics before they start to apply budget, when you actually want to look at some of those pre-conversion metrics, because those will indicate to you that you're on a good audience, and then start to apply budgets to those where the add to carts and CPCs and CTRs are looking good, and then start to scale up from there.
Absolutely. I think too many early advertisers focus on the return on ad spend, the cost per acquisition right out of the gate. And if the data is too thin there, it's inconclusive. If you're working off a few conversions a week, a few purchases, those can be a fluke. It's not suggesting any type of consistent or replicatable behavior. Where if you are seeing a lot of activity on clicks, different types of engagement metrics that would be considered upper or mid funnel early in the process, and consider that there's going to be 7 touch points or more on average before a conversion actually occurs, you could start spending smarter at an earlier stage. And it's just a great, approach as a whole. 20% of the budget, looking at different audiences, reapplying more budget at that point towards what's working best from those allocations. That's essentially an optimization. And then the question we get asked the most is, how do we scale? So as it's working, let's say you're getting a few clicks, a few conversions from certain audiences that, you start spending a little bit more, it's working. How does a group go from an SMB to a larger portion of digital market share?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. So in terms of scale, it's really, there's some playbooks out there for the direct to consumer businesses that I would say, a couple different playbooks. So, you can spend I'll just break down the ones that I've seen. One of the ways that we see a lot of SMBs is they simply spend their way to the top, right? So once you've established, hey, we got a great product, we're building a market, we've identified the audiences, we are getting a good return on ad spend, it really does then become about scaling up budgets, right? And one thing about the Facebook environment that we know is that it's an algorithmic environment that responds to success. That's how their algorithms are written. As you get better metrics, more conversions, more audiences, etc. So I think having the capital allocated to really apply budget once you start to see those successes is really important. And then we also see a lot of brand building happening, which is a slower, more organic approach to social media advertising, but can be just as effective. And for those brands, we see them where they're not always going after the most maximum or most efficient CPA, but they want to build that customer base over time, less through promotion, but more through their branding efforts. So those are the two pathways we see. And our tools can be used down both pathways, because either way, you're going to be still identifying new audiences and continuing to find these new audiences and grow. It's just a matter of, hey, are you going to go and scale and your way to the top, or do you want to, build your brand organically over the course of a couple of years?
Sure.
And we've seen success down both paths.
Absolutely. Any success stories you're able to share? And it could be from past ventures and bigger brands. It could be stuff now that you have to remove names from, but any type of numbers that you like to point at when you talk about what's possible.
Yeah, many of them actually. And it's one of the amazing things about the direct to consumer channel is it gives, I think, business owners control back over their business, right? Like a great example of this is Tesla. Okay. I mean, obviously one of the most innovative companies on the planet, so I'm not breaking any records here by bringing them up, but what some people forget is that he went completely around the dealer ecosystem, right? Every other car, if they wanted to sell a car, they had to sell to a dealer who sold to the user. And they said, no, we're going to just go and sell these directly to the users. And for a lot of businesses, having a direct to consumer channel gives them the ability to control and grow their business in a way that they didn't before. The best example of that is this brand called Truth Treatments. We've been working with them for about a year and a half. Great company, founder-driven company. Ben Fuchs is an amazing, charismatic pharmacist. He built the skincare brand, one client at a time over 15 years. And when we first met them, they were selling mostly through wholesale, right? So their pricing and their challenges in the business were related to managing this wholesale environment. They were doing about 5-10K a month in direct-to-consumer business. We started working with them, building that direct-to-consumer channel. Now they're doing consistently, over 350K a month in D2C business, right? Over the course of about a year and a half in growth. And it's given them control over the pricing, the branding, and all of that, because they own that customer relationship now, where in that wholesale channel, they didn't own the customer relationship. So it's an example of a brand that's been able to build a D2C channel, scale revenue 10, 15x over the course of a year and a half, which is amazing. But even more importantly, give that brand the customer relationship back. And so they now own those customers and they can launch other products and scale their business in ways that they can't before. And to me, that's really what's so exciting about this direct-to-consumer ecosystem. And we're thrilled to be a part of it. If our tools can help 100 SMBs or 1,000 SMBs, reach their goals, we're really, that's our mission.
Absolutely. So great to point out. And I've seen brands with benefits from distributors, but also handcuffed, and being able to have that direct to consumer channel opens up for a better experience on both sides of the marketplace. I've seen margins removed from groups that are going direct to consumer and not having to, I don't want to bash retail or anything, but not having to use different parties in between. So if it makes sense for the industry, as I like to say, for social advertising, and as I was mentioning before, of not a matter of will it work, but how to get it to work. Once you crack the code, you own those tools, and you're able to continue to go back to that audience, scale up what you're doing on those tools, and take things to whole new levels.
Yeah, it's an amazing ecosystem shifting right now. I'll throw out one more number. There's 5.5 million freelance marketers in the US right now. And I think that group represents this shift that's happening where people are building their direct consumer channels. They're engaging freelancers to do it. They're engaging agencies like yourself to do it as well, our tools, and they're building these new modern business stacks, actually, right? That are built around specifically just the direct consumer channel. Even companies like Samcart, which is a really great company, we're going to be doing a partnership with them where they're an e-commerce platform, and they're going to roll out our audience discovery tools, our browser extension, Arrow AI, across their user base. They have about 20,000 e-commerce stores. So we're really excited about this partnership we're going to kick off in a few months. But another example of this modern business stack that's developed, and it's an exciting time to be in I think in the direct to consumer space.
That is a fact. Exciting time, more and more available, adoption of technology over the past year and what that opens up, all the beginning of a very exciting chapter. And as we begin to wrap things up, Roland, any
Sure.
other recommendations, any other insights, anything else you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, great question. I would say I think we're on the cusp of a great year for the economy. That's one. I think we're on the cusp of a great year for American entrepreneurship, and globally as well. I think lots of other countries, you're seeing this groundswell of new businesses coming up. Mexico is the #1 fastest growing e-commerce country on the planet right now, growing 30% year over year. So this isn't just the US, it's really a global movement right now. I think it's an exciting time to start your own business. I think people are realizing that work-life balance can be completely different. Obviously, we all lost our offices last year. So we're used to working from anywhere and interviews over the laptop. But I think that's my big message. It's an exciting time for the ecosystem. We're thrilled to be partnering with big players in the space like Facebook, but most importantly, thrilled to be a part of this growing wave of entrepreneurship. So I say, find your tools, pick your passion, and jump in.
Absolutely. And Roland, these have been excellent recommendations. Been taking note, gonna have my team listen in on some of this. If anyone who's listening on the episode, watching, would like to get in touch with you, speak more about custom social, about Arrow AI, what is the best way to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can visit us at www.getarrow.ai. You can drop us an email there, sign up for our newsletter, or join our beta list. We are growing our beta users for this year for our new product launch, the browser extension, which is coming in the middle of April. That's the best way. And just make sure you note in there that you listen to this podcast, and I'll make sure and reach out to you personally. We care about every single one of our users. I'm on the first name basis with a lot of our users of our tools. So we're really committed to that. And yeah, I'd love to chat with you anytime.
We look for that personalized service when we're exploring vendors. So anyone who's listening in, I would take advantage of that. And Roland, want to thank you so much for joining. Want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll see everyone next time.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jason. Great to be here.
Thanks, Roland. Take care, guys.